Alright, guys. So I just took best overall at a GT this weekend, and I thought that'd be the perfect jumping point to get into making videos talking about my GT lists and kind of game plan going forward for future competitive events. So without further ado, let's just dive right into it. Alright guys, this is the Luna Wolves 6th Company. This is the list I'm bringing to the Iron Claws GT this weekend. Gonna be shooting for first place overall, but you know, it's a dice game, so my fallback option is also going for best overall or best in show. From left to right, we're working with a Repulsor Executioner, Scout Squad, Arjack plus 10 Wolfguard Terminators, Bjorn the Fell-Handed. He's the oldest model in this army right now. I gotta replace him, as you can tell, with the older basing. This is a Head Taker squad with dual wield weapons. Gladiator Lancer. Head Taker squad with shields, being led by a Wolf Priest down here. Vindicator. Intercessor squad. And of course the main show, my Logan Grimnar Abaddon with his five Wolfguard Terminators. And almost forgot the Combi LT in the back. That's the list, and we'll go through it more in depth in a second here. Overall of the board. Yeah, I'm feeling good. And now to break down the list in detail, we'll just kind of work our way through. I'm going to preface by saying I've done some testing on TTS after list lock happened, and I already have one change I'm going to make to this list, and that'll be the three-man paired head takers. It's going to swap to jump pack intercessors, bring me to a smooth 2000. I just need something that's just that little hair faster for skirmishing piece at the beginning of the game for the game plan that I want to play. And the three-man head takers just don't cut it, where a JPI squad probably will, from the few games that I've done. But anyways, going through the list, we are starting with Arjack Rockfist. He's going to be leading 10 Wolfguard Terminators. That's the squad with 7, 7, 2, 2, and a Great Axe. I like putting them up in Deep Strike for most matchups, and then using Logan to turn 1 Deep Strike them. It's really hard for a lot of opponents to deal with 10 Wolfguard Terminators on their natural expansion right out the gates. And with the first saga, the Great Wolf Doctrine, the reroll advance and charge rolls, it's pretty likely that you actually bang that 9-inch charge out of Deep Strike, and you can really get in your opponent's business. Bjorn the Fell-Handed with the Hellfrost Cannon, auto included. You need the CP generation, especially in Saga, where you're so CP hungry. Um, I just think he's mandatory auto include. I use him to kind of sit back and behind my middle ruins and defend my natural. With the Hellfrost and the Heavy Flamer Fist, he's got a decent overwatch into smaller, cheap infantry like skirmishers, which is probably what your opponent is jamming onto your natural early on. So he's pretty useful to clear that, keep that free. LT with combi weapon, I mean, pretty straightforward, but Marine list doesn't run them right now. I find the Lieutenant is better at holding my natural expansion, using the lone op to its fullest extent. They'd have to chew through Bjorn to get over to him within lone op range, and then that's a whole fiasco in itself. It also keeps that no man's land side of the board kind of zoned out of deep strikes a little more, as opposed to dancing him in the middle and letting him die early like a lot of Marine players tend to do. Logan Grimnar, another auto include in the list. This one, especially being that I'm in Saga the Great Wolf, he allows me to, once per game, use one of the doctrines I've already chosen for the army and use it again, which is fantastic because I like to burn through my doctrines pretty early. I usually do reroll charges on the first turn as I stage up, and then shooting doctrine second, melee doctrine third is pretty standard. Some matchups I might go into melee second if they let me connect with several units. But then that means I'm out of gas for 4 and 5. So having Logan in the list allows me to be flexible with that. It also means I could do against faster armies like, say, World Eaters or EC. It would allow me to choose melee doctrine twice in a row on 2 and 3, which would be mighty useful. Wolf Priest, he's attaching to 6 head takers with shields. They're usually inside of the Rep X. I like bringing the Wolf Priest over the Battle Leader with the Lance enhancement because 1, he's cheaper. 2, it's the durability with the shield head takers, being able to bring a model back. 3, the +1 to wound is just better because it's flat +1 to wound instead of Lance. I do lose the reroll ones and the sustained hits, but I find the 6-man blob doesn't really need it, especially if it's going into its prey target. I think the just being in the melee doctrine from Saga the Great Wolf, coupled with the +1 to wound from the Wolf Priest, is usually enough to put them over, especially with the depth wounds and precision of their prey marker. Intercessor Squad, they're just there to sticky home objective and then zone deep strikes. They can perform actions in my home deployment zone for me. I just think 1 squad of intercessors is auto-include in most Marines lists right now. I did give the Sergeant the grenade launcher and the power fist. Moving into the other data sheets, Gladiator Lancer, self-explanatory. I want 2 big fuck-off laser guns, and that comes from the heavy laser destroyer on both the Lancer and the Rep X. I find the Lancer at 160 is just a good anti-tank skirmishing piece. It really only suffers into vehicles with invulns like Doomsday Arcs from Necrons, but things without an invulnerable save or without a 2-up armor save just fall apart. Transports, battle wagons, stuff like that just seems to melt under the Lancer, which is nice. Repulsor Executioner, same thing. I wanted a second big fuck-off gun, but I also wanted something to transport the head takers, because I do have a pretty large footprint without transports. So he's either an Impulsor and a Lancer, or just, put them all in a Repulsor Executioner. Plus, I do like the volume of fire from its secondary guns into horde armies that have the ability to charge block me, because I am pretty melee heavy. Stuff like Spectacle of Spite, Drukari right now. I want volume of fire that's able to clear some incidental witch bricks, like say the Fights vs Succubus brick. I would prefer to be able to shoot at them with the repulsors guns and charge something else with my melee units. Scout Squad, this one's another auto-include for me as a player. I don't think they're auto-include for every Marine player, especially if you're doing, LT with combi weapon, and then you have, like, incursors or something. I personally like my Scout Squad because my local meta has a lot of people that run units with infiltrate and or scout moves, and it's nice to keep those armies a little more honest. This is also my unit for, like, turn 1 area denied, sabotage, cleanse, establish locus, something like that, where I have to throw a piece out into the middle of the board. I prefer to stage everything in my ruins turn 1 in this army and have my 10-man Wolfguard brick go into the enemy deployment zone. So I don't really have anything that's sitting out in the open on area denial. So that's what the Scout Squad's in there for. On to the Vindicator. I pretty much exclusively strat reserve the Vindicator in this list. And then I drive it on turn 2 to delete either some elite infantry or vehicle that I need dead. Saga the Great Wolf has great support for the Vindicator with the +1 to hit in the shooting doctrine, as well as the +1 to wound in the shooting stratagem. Vindicators can get some insane mileage when they're hitting and wounding most things in the games on 2s. If you really need it dead, you can put Oath of Moment on it. And then for the investment of 1 CP in your Oath, your Vindicator's probably picking up whatever it's looking at. I mean, most likely picking up. Obviously, it's a Vindicator. You have D6 number of shots and D6 for damage, so there's a bit of casino action in there. But it's done me well. I like including it in my list. I think if I were to make any severe changes beyond swapping the 3-man head takers for jump pack intercessors, I'd be moving into the Vindicator being swapped out as the next territory. On to the other units. This is the 6-man head takers with storm shields. These ones are in the Rep X with the Wolf Priest. We kind of touched on that already. 3-man head takers with dual wield. I just had 90 points floating around, and I decided I liked head takers, so I wanted to try them. Giving the paired combat weapons a little uh, run through their paces, so to speak, a little testing. I'm not liking it. They are definitely becoming jump pack intercessors after this GT. Wolfguard Terminators, this 5-man with 4 shields and a Great Axe is attached to Logan. I use Logan's Vectora pretty aggressively in those middle ruins, and so having the Ablative Wounds of Wolfguard Terminators is just good for him. And then the 10 brick of Wolfguard Terminators, 7 shields, 2 assault cannons, and a Great Axe. I do like the assault cannons on the squad because when they come down turn 1, I can usually split fire and try to put the 2 assault cannons into something chaffy along my opponent's deployment and or natural, and then be able to bang the 9-inch reroll will charge into something else and try to get double activations out of these Terminators. Because at 340, so at 445, like the brick is pretty expensive to not be getting multiple uses out of, which is fine because they also serve the purpose of tanking my entire opponent's army for their next turn or two, depending on what faction I'm playing against. Because I have yet to play anybody that picks up the entire brick in one round. But yeah, that's the list. I've already thought about changes, but I'm pretty happy with it. I think this is a good 4-1, 5-0 if I get good matchups list, and I'm mostly shooting to get best in show or best overall at this event. So here's kind of the deployment and game plan for day 1 of the GT. It was layout 6 all day, and then we had 2 of Crucible and 1 of Tipping Point. So I opted for the Crucible deployment because that's a little harder to work with the diagonal as opposed to the Tipping Point. Tipping Point just lets you get more clean angles, like up into this pocket, and flush against the back of this wall and everything. But starting from Crucible, hopefully you win deployment or your opponent doesn't have any infiltrate units. If that's the case, you're going to want to drop these scouts up here. This buys you space for your reserves. So I guess we'll talk about that first, actually. So you want deployment. You're going to choose to go first. Declaring reserves and transports, we've got Arjac and 10 in Deep Strike. We've got the Head Takers, the 6 plus Priest in the Repex. And then the Vindicator, I like the Strat Reserve. The Vindy is kind of your selfish oath target in this list. So you want to drive it on turn 2, maybe 3, depending on how you're screened. You want to oath whatever it's going to shoot at, and then you just want to hopefully delete one thing. That's kind of the purpose of the Vindy in the list. I am thinking about making cuts, like trimming it down to something more cost-effective, like a Lancer driving on, and then using the 25 points extra for upgrades here and there. But anyways, so Deep Strike, Reserve, and Transport. Then you get your first drop, and you want to take some space with the Scouts. I do a little more staggered and back here. That way, if I'm going second, I kind of just tuck them nicely in behind this L shape. And it just makes the opponent reach a little more if they really do want to remove the Scouts. But I want to be at least touching their no man's land, because in Saga the Great Wolf with Logan Grimnar, you're going to be wanting to go for that turn 1 Deep Strike play if you get top of turn. This little pocket here is a nice good spot for the Termies, and hopefully your opponent has deployed something along the edge, and you can kind of bang for that 9-inch charge. So you take some space with the Scouts here, then, react to whatever they drop. I usually do Combi LT 6 inches away from this objective second. That keeps the lone op range pretty good, because now they've got to basically attack your natural if they want to even attack him. Bjorn then comes here to back him up. Generally, anybody who's attacking your natural early when the Combi LT's out like this is probably skirmishing units like jump pack intercessors, or commandos, witches or hellions from Drakari, You know, Rangers from Eldari, stuff that will fall over to the double flamer of Bjorn with Hellfrost. My third drop, usually intercessors on the home, obviously one guy towing, so I can have sticky objective, and then just zoning the back deep strike. If your opponent, for whatever reason, doesn't have any reserves or deep strikes, no uppy downy, anything like that, you can pop these guys right up to the wall, and then they've got assault on their guns, so you can advance them out from the wall. You know, an average 3-inch advance, you can break through into this choke point here. And 24 lets you kind of just shoot at anything, peek in the middle, if you need to, or if you have the resources to get aggressive with them. Rep X here, Rep X is a fat fucking footprint, so it's pretty hard to hide it in effective places. You can either drop one up here where Bjorn and Lance are, basically switch their positions. If your opponent is playing something very aggro, very fast, and they're going to be attacking your natural all game, then the Rep X full of head takers can sit here. You can either pop here to have this firing line down across, because 10-inch move, say, you know, the Rep X is where the Lancer is. 10-inch lets you crest the front of this building, which gives you firing lane down here, and, you know, from this corner, you can't quite cut into the building, but you can still touch anything in no man's land middle. It also gives you a firing lane up here for anybody attacking your base. So yeah, Rep X down here tucked, because I like to play a little aggressive and send them out to back up the 10-man, but this is also an option up here. Logan, I always position Logan near any middle ruins, no matter what the layout is. Layout 1, you got that nice, sweet L shape. He basically just wants to be kind of pressed up against this area, so I generally turn 1, I'll take the reroll advances and charges doctrine, I'll whip an advance on these guys, make sure that I can just spread them out nicely in the ruin with cohesion for Logan, just so that the Vectora can touch kind of anything in this midfield. And that stage is up for any turn 2 go turns for people. If they don't have one, he's also right here, so then on my turn 2, you know, send roughly a 3-inch advance, so you can come out and tag this. Or I can give them advance and charge if somebody else stepped up to contest this. Head takers, these are probably going to be jump back intercessors, but they're kind of my cheap skirmish chaff to go attack the enemy natural if I don't get first turn. So like the turn 1 deep strike play with Rjack and them only works if you get top of turn. So if you're bottom of turn, your game plan changes a little bit. So you'll have your skirmishing chaff here. I'm going to change them to JPI because if you look at these measurements, so they move 7, come out to here, and then say you roughly throw a 3-inch advance with your reroll advances. Charge, it's what, 3.5 average, so let's say 3 to be conservative. You're still just coming up short on the objective, so if somebody's towing just the back, you're looking at a 9-inch banger. Whereas if these were jump back intercessors, they'd be throwing a 12, no advance in charge, but they can still touch the edge here and contest OC-wise, and then you're throwing a 7 with a reroll turn 1 if you're attacking the natural. If you get bottom of turn and they don't take their own natural, then you can just stage up kind of in this L shape and let your scouts do the work. That's about it for deployment. So then we'll go into kind of the top of turn game plan. So if you get first turn, top of turn for first turn, you generally want to drop the 10-man termies here. Depending on the army you're against. So I've been stress testing in all my games because, you know, the detachment's new. And I haven't been using Wolfguard Terminators all edition, so I'm kind of limit testing what I can do. But generally, a lot of factions struggle to pick up a 10 brick plus Rjack in the first turn. And if they do manage to do it, it takes most of their activations, which pseudo jails them for a turn. I mean, they can move out past it, but if they're spending all of the activations to kill Rjack, they're probably kind of staying sequestered on this side of the map in their deployment zone. So you'll drop here with the space you created from your scouts, and you'll try to bang that 9-inch rerollable charge into whatever they've deployed. So generally somebody wants to put something, here. Somebody trying to deploy something like this, kind of like the Lancer's doing or Bjorn's doing over here. So I would be throwing, here, create bubble. I'd be throwing down kind of behind the building for the guys that are exposed in this footprint. And you always want to make sure it's your R-Jack, depending on the target. So if it's like a Vindicator, you want your R-Jack to be this first point of contact. But if it's like infantry and stuff, you want R-Jack to actually be the last point of contact, so that if you fail the charge and they start blasting into you, he's the last to die, and therefore you have presence on the objective. So it's a little flow chart. If you need the anti-vehicle, anti-monster punch-up, you throw them there. If it's just a squad you're getting into, you throw them here. So then you set up, you do a little string around the back of the building here. Boo, boo, boo. And you put as many on the objective while being tucked as you can. Remembering 2 inches of 2. Something like that. So then the support they get for over here has to cut at about here. You can even tuck a little tighter. Basically, I have to cut from here to see the guys in the building. And then bang the 9-inch rerollable. I don't know why that's, bubble's wrong, you get the effect. These guys in the transport don't have to do anything till the mid game. They kind of stay inside for 2 to 3 rounds. Yeah, and then if you get second turn instead, you want to pull back a little bit with your scouts. Something like that. Just make it a little harder to reach out and touch them. Don't give them free shots with all their secondary shooting. And then these guys would be back up in deep strike with bottom of turn. And you'd probably be playing for like a turn 2 rapid ingress play. So you give them the space. That's where the head takers or JPI come into play. So between them and the scouts, you keep jockeying from their natural. They probably attack yours with their skirmish chaff. Bjorn can walk up. He's towing it. Between Bjorn and the Lancer, you're playing for your own natural. And then depending on where your enemy is staging, you're probably looking to rapid ingress either back here or kind of this pocket over here and play for one of these 2 objectives depending on the game state. And day 2, similar game plan, much better layout in my opinion. So day 2 was layout 3, search and destroy for both missions. I love layout 3 search and destroy for this army list specifically. Everything just happens to fit nicely and perform their roles. So same game plan. You got R-Jack and 10 up in the air. Depending on the matchup, obviously, if they can screen you almost indefinitely, things like AdMech with how fast they are and how horde-like they are, you probably could just start R-Jack on the board. That would just shuffle things around a bit. Like you'd probably pop the Rep X down here to make room for R-Jack and the brick here, and they just slow march up into middle. Scouts taking up space on the enemy natural here. I like this position here. It buys you room on the objective no matter what. And then if you end up going second, they just pop behind this little terrain feature. Head takers in here, again, I wish they were jump pack intercessors, because jump pack intercessors would let you just come up short of the objective, but that means it's 6 inches or less charge for anybody that toes on. Logan in the pocket, even straight out the gate for deployment, you're casting his Vectora right up to the tip of the enemy in ruin. It's great for defensive stratagems, anything like that if you're playing into World Eaters because you're starting on the line and then they just sent Karn and the boys over here. They're going to have no turn 1 strats of any sort, and you'll have access to presumably your Armor of Contempt, because, I mean, fucking chain swords, am I right? Combi LT, 6 inches off here. This is making good use of the lone op range, as well as the corners of the terrain. Nobody's going to be able to get to them. If they end within 9, which is, feasible charge distance, he's just going to scootaloo 6 inches away, because anything that's getting there fast enough to kill him, you can scootaloo away. Depending what it is, too, if they start on this line and they try to get there to get on him, Bjorn is in range and sight to Flamer the front half of the objective. Lancer down the pipe here. The only thing I found that can reach out this far and touch him is chickens from AdMech. The las cannon chickens, you give them Hallis Creed plus move, and since they have the Assault Native, they can fly up here and get this line. So just be wary of that matchup, but otherwise most things are too slow to get that exact angle. And that frees you up to threaten right here, which gets you straight down the pipe. Or if the enemy is kind of sequestered up here and making a big play for your natural as opposed to taking middle, he can always shoot across. He can get fully within the terrain piece / peeking out this way, which gives you full coverage down the pipe here. Hit takers and JPI covered. Rep-X here. There were quite a few games where I just turn 1, shoved the Rep-X in the middle and said deal with it. There's still the guys inside. It's a big chunky vehicle. And then with Logan staging in this corner, my vector coverage gets basically to their other pocket and around here. So anything getting melee threatening of the Rep-X will struggle. Bjorn usually pushes up to the corner of this building where he's tucked. He gets vision from the back of his base to overwatch threat anything coming to get the Combi LT, who's tucked in here. And it also puts him in range that if they do make a play for the Rep-X, can give him advance and charge for the turn. Say it's 3 on his 9, because we're going with low end of averages. And then it's like a 7-inch charge to get anything that gets in the line of sight pocket. The only thing that I found is rough to reach doing this was my Chaos Knights matchup. He put Despoiler like right up on the edge here and popped the lethal hits on the Gatling. The Rep-X lived though because Armor of Contempt is a hell of a drug. And I didn't get to clap back there, but making that play, he shoved his Despoilers this way, which got me a lot of space for our Jack and the boys to drop down over here and make their 9-inch play, which I think in that matchup I actually did make the 9-inch charge, and I ended up tagging and killing a Beast and Urgle over here in that matchup, which was nice. So then I had our Jack and the boys chilling in this pocket, top of 1, and then we kick it to bottom of 1, and he had 3 Despos here. 2 Despos, in fact, did not kill the 10-man brick. I don't know if that was bad dice, but because I've only played the matchup twice, but in both times, 2 Despoilers with Gatlings does not pick up the brick. So they need to commit some extra resources there, which gets dicey. They usually have some carnivores, but the Slaughter Claw doesn't have the volume to deal with the Terminators, because if I stick, on above average amount of 4-ups, they become very killable with our Jack. And then you're just giving me a carnivore for free. Yeah, that's how the games went, or at least how deployment went and the game plan. I think I put up some pretty respectable scores. I'm gonna fine tune this list a bit. I think my next change is cut these head takers and just do a 1-for-1 with jump pack intercessors. The list as it stands is 1995 points, with head takers being at 85. So if I swap them for the 90-point JPI, it'll bring me to 2,000 clean, and I think they'll serve the same purpose, because with 7-inch move, you're basically forced to throw the advance, which means you're spending a CP on the advance and charge for these guys, whereas if they were jump back intercessors, they would just naturally get to here and have a 6-inch charge, and then because I generally almost always do reroll advance and charge roll Doctrine turn 1, you're throwing a 6-inch rerollable to attack their natural. And then I think JPI is just enough to get the job done. It saves you that reroll, or sorry, that advance and charge CP to throw grenades at your target instead. You know, you fly out 12, you end up here, you throw grenades at something, and then you charge it, and then you do impact mortals, and then hopefully the power fist is enough to get the job done. Otherwise, you do have a few chainswords to get you there. Plus, anything touching their natural this early, except for specific matchups like knights or whatever, is probably skirmish chaff. And JPI should do fine in skirmish chaff. But yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk on Saga the Great Wolf in this recent GT.